I started playing VRChat on and off around early 2019, and it wasn't until 2020 when I started playing VRChat a lot more often, mainly because I had bought a VR headset and experiencing VRChat in VR was very addicting.
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Okay.
Wait, what's the
good.
seventh letter of the alphabet?
What?
What's the seventh letter of the alphabet?
G?
I'm a good
I don't
detective.
know.
Oh, I fucking knew it! I fucking knew it!
The perception of depth within a 3D space that I was so used to seeing from my monitor was really cool, and at the same time it was really strange. It took me a few weeks before I made my first couple of friends, and I was very socially anxious, so it took a while. But after the first few friends, it was like a chain reaction. It went from 3 to 7 to 12, and it kept just somehow steadily growing, because I would make friends with my friends' friends, and I would make friends with their friends, and it was sort of like a domino effect. And obviously it took time. It was over the course of maybe 2 years that I ended up with 500-ish friends on my friends list. I made friends with people from all over the world. One of the first few friends that I've ever made were from Kazakhstan. Which is insane because not a lot of people can say that they've made friends with someone from Kazakhstan or Lithuania or Austria. But through those 2 years, my friends list wasn't exactly growing linearly. With friends made, there were also friends lost, whether it was because of a fallout or just a lack of time spent. It was kind of an inevitable cycle that I found myself inside of. When I look back, it's hard to remember a lot of people. The only people that I can remember were either those who hung around with me the most, or those who had a bit of an impact, whether it was negative or positive, or those in photos or videos that I had taken back then and I still have today. Over the years, I took a ton of pictures. My VRChat photo folder actually has around like 4,000 photos in it. They are what helps me remember a lot of moments in the past that I would have otherwise probably forgotten. The videos that I had made were originally going to be for a follow-up video in regards to my journey of trying to beat my social anxiety and whatnot, and I'm planning on making a separate video talking about that specifically because it's really complicated. So in this video, I just kind of wanted to talk about something interesting that I noticed when I would make friends on VRChat.
What's it called?
Yes.
The sign wall.
Okay, well,
Okay.
let me introduce. This is Artie. This is Vibers. Vibers does a really good impersonation of Artie.
Yeah, oh my god, I dick.
Fair one.
There's no
Bye bye. See you later.
Who made that? Who made that voice?
Artie.
Livers, is this legal?
I don't know.
Okay, so when you make friends in VRChat, there's usually two very common styles of friendship you'll kind of have with them. Either they are someone that you see every once in a while, sometimes you two might visit each other, or you guys have a consistent pattern of hanging out pretty often. And it's this particular instance where you are very likely to become friends with their friends, and usually this sort of automatically recruits you into that person's friend group. And it works the other way around as well. They hang out with you, so friends that you might be around often will end up becoming their friends too. This causes these groups to grow, and you suddenly have a lot of people you hang out with for long periods of time very often. What I'm trying to say is that there's this sort of perpetual motion you are thrown into where suddenly it feels like you have lots of friends, lots of good friends even, or lots of close friends. But sometimes, unfortunately, things can go wrong in many different ways. Maybe someone is crushing on you, or you're crushing on them, and their rejection kind of creates an inevitable separation. Or instead, they become hostile and you end up leaving because of toxicity. I often would call the VRChat social experience a second high school because the way in which drama often ensued was very dumb, and depending on certain groups it would be really terrible or nearly non-existent. It really depended on the particular group that you were a part of. Sometimes it can be very difficult trying to figure out how to find the right type of people to be around, because if I'm going to be honest, it's extremely difficult to just avoid drama. There's always going to be someone who annoys someone else, and that can always be a catalyst for annoying shit. I was someone who was kind of like the sun in a solar system of a group of friends. I went from being so shy and a quiet, socially anxious person to somehow being this huge centerpiece of a friend group. And this is all like the first half of 2020, by the way. And it only took 2 people in the group. We also had like a Discord and everything. But it only took 2 people out of 12 to 20-ish people. It would grow a little bit here and there sometimes to turn half of them against me. And that in itself is a whole different story. But after that happened, I went through a lot of emotions and just completely separated myself. I ended up making a whole new account, and I added all the people that I was pretty close to and really cool with, mainly for just this kind of sort of like reset. I avoided nurturing groups because the effort to mediate the last one so much only to be turned against was just enough to leave a bad taste in my mouth. I would spend a great deal of time in public worlds after that, because at first I would spend a lot of time in Friends Plus worlds, mostly because friends that hang out in Friends Plus spaces easily generate big groups of friends and mutuals, obviously, but that's what I did quite frequently around that time before I made a new account and tried to start over. So instead of that, I had decided to stick to public worlds, where I could always meet new people and also chill with friends. And this eventually went really, really well for me for the rest of my VRChat friend making experiences. I will say, for what it's worth, the difference is like I had to choose between like highly likely there being gossip in more private, sort of closed friend groups, or I would choose public worlds where I would always be able to meet new people, and there would be less likely the chance of gossip and drama to fester in that way. So yeah, I that's why public worlds are, Losing friends was something that was kind of just inevitable. I lost a lot of good amount of friends because of toxicity, or they were very overbearing and invasive, or they didn't like my friends, or they liked me but I didn't like them back, like romantically, which sometimes was the other way around, or they just pretty much didn't like me, or realized they didn't like me, I guess, after spending like some time getting to know me. It is what it is, and I learned that despite how much I wish everyone would like me, not everyone is going to like me. And perhaps there'd always be something to learn from these experiences. Sometimes it would be really hard to deal with. A slight positive about this is that I learned how to let people go pretty easily though. However, something that bothers me is the fact that it's a little too easy for me to simply let go to protect myself. It's sort of a double-edged sword, because even though the decision was easy, depending on how close I was would determine how sad or depressed I would be afterwards. So when I say letting go, it's more like the action or the steps that are necessary to be taken, and not really like the emotional letting go, because that's the hard part, or at least was, and I think still is. I would say that there are a lot of people, especially on VRChat, who I notice would lose friends and would express a lot of sadness about being or feeling alone, or how people would always leave. The way I saw it was that unless you got lucky with really good friendships, people were going to come and go. Especially people who eventually play VRChat less over time. It's sort of par for the course. And one thing I picked up on was that there are a lot of people that would make friends with people, go to friend plus worlds or private worlds, and keep everything closed like that. In my opinion, this is no different than gambling or just straight up dating in VRChat. Public worlds are where we all start off in the beginning. It is in public worlds where anything can happen. This is essentially the foundational social experience of this game. And in VRChat today, we have something called groups. Groups actually make making friends in public worlds very, very easy compared to a few years ago. There are all sorts of groups that create public lobbies of popular worlds, and they advertise their desire to nurture environments where like-minded people can make friends. Some of these groups are 18 plus, and unfortunately you have to pay just to be age verified, which is cringe, but whatever. And if you're an old head like me, you know how annoying it was when the influx of kids would appear out of nowhere every Christmas ever since the quest came out. And so worlds like the Black Cat not only had a bunch of annoying trolls, but a whole bunch of kids everywhere also. But anyway, public worlds honestly are just obviously, and especially under groups, the best places to make friends. It's just that there are a lot of people who find themselves feeling alone that might have forgotten how they got where they were before they were alone. This is usually just for people that have been playing VRChat for a while and they suddenly feel like they don't have any more friends. So I thought it would just be helpful to highlight this friendship cycle that other people like me may have gone through and didn't quite understand, or perhaps are currently going through right now. I will say that this honestly isn't something you'd ever have to worry about if you just don't really experience losing friends that much, or maybe you found a group that you click very well with. And I know a lot of people that have friends they've just had around for years, completely online, which is wild to think about sometimes. I had my heightened social butterfly phases a few years ago, and I eventually ended up taking long breaks away from VRChat. Now I have a ton of people in my friends list who are mostly just strangers to me now, and me to them. It's only really the people in my favorites list that I still kind of remember and feel comfortable with approaching, but even them, there's a strange feeling of great distance between me and them, and it feels like I have to sort of try to make friends with them again. And it's these kinds of things that make me feel like wanting to make a whole new account all over again and just start all over and add some of the people that are close enough to me despite time apart that I feel like there's still some connection with, because there are friendships that you will have like long gaps in between, and every time you guys reconnect again, it's like you never spent time away besides the different things you get to talk about. And this is kind of the last point I'll make, which is losing friends kind of goes beyond unadding people or people unadding you, blocking, starting over, or whatever. It can be as simple as you not spending enough time with that person, you not creating enough memories with them, you not knowing enough about them, and vice versa. That a sort of distance grows, and there's really not much you can do about it, especially if it's one-sided. And I don't want to make this sound like an "oh, woe is me" kind of thing, because I personally don't think I'm a good friend. I can often be very detached in my own world, in my head somewhere in Narnia, and other people often have to try to keep me from floating away. I got a lot of problems, and I'm very self-aware of that, but I just wanted to talk about this because it was something that I found interesting. And honestly, I'm pretty sure it can be applied to a lot of different spaces, and not just VRChat. However, VRChat is the only space besides a little bit of Discord where I really got to observe the patterns of socialization that I was experiencing, and hopefully there are other people who can relate to something here and maybe learn something new or interesting to think about. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about. I just had it on my mind and I kind of wanted to talk about it.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4 windows open. One is my literally the desktop because I'm about to open up Epic Games. I have a keyboard right here. I have my VRChat thing here from my stream camera. The stream camera, except it's an actual overlay thing. I change the size of it. And then right here is Discord. It's right on top. And right here is OBS. I'm about to close OBS because OBS is pretty trash to have open right now. It's pretty stupid. So I just closed it.
Wow.
Yeah, and now I'm about to go to Epic Games to see if I can get that game for free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.